Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to I Care About You, the podcast where we explore the tender, messy, beautiful work of healing, resilience, and living with intention. I'm your host, Juliana J, and today we're digging into something that affects all of us, whether we talk about it or not, and that's called happiness, which seems to be on a lot of people's minds these days because the search for happiness has become harder or more unobtainable for so many people, at least that they feel this way. But I'm not talking about the glossy Instagram version of happiness, not good vibes only kind. I'm talking about deep, sustainable, science-based well-being, the kind that includes sadness, purpose, connection, and growth. And today we're diving into the 2025 World Happiness Report, which is a global snapshot of what's happening around the world that is helping people thrive and what isn't. And spoiler alert, it's probably not what you think. What are some of the misconceptions about happiness? Let's start by unlearning a few things. In the 2025 report, they open up with a powerful truth. Most of us are looking for happiness in all the wrong places. We've been told it's about individual success, money, status, or quote unquote self-care in the form of bubble bath and binging Netflix. But the data says otherwise. After your basic needs are met, like housing, food, and healthcare, more money doesn't make you happier. But what does? What does? Time spent on meaningful activities, strong social connections, and a deep sense of belonging top the list. Now, I've never been fortunate enough to have more money than I can possibly imagine. So I don't know what it would be like to make above the comfort level of money. But I can really understand this because once your basic needs are met and also you feel secure in finances, you don't need to be a billionaire. And as we look around the world, we really notice that there's so many people with money who are very unhappy, very unhappy. You can see it in their face. You hear stories about them, you read about them. There's a fair amount of folks who feel like they just can't go on in life for whatever reasons, but on the outside, they look incredibly successful to us. So this makes a lot of sense. And here's another shocker. People who spend time on challenging activities, things that require focus, effort, growth, report a 31% higher life satisfaction than those who prioritize that's like a Freudian slip, huh? Prioritize relaxation or leisure alone. This makes complete sense to me as I am one who is always doing some intricate things or learning something or exploring something. And I often see folks who really prioritized relaxation or leisure and they defend it with their life. Like they're defending that it's okay to just spend a lot of time binging Netflix or laying on the couch and things like that. And no shade to anybody who's doing that. But a lot of those folks, to me, don't seem as happy as the ones that are really engaged in life and the intricacies of growth throughout your lifetime. I think that's why the majority of you are here now, is you're looking to grow in your life. You're looking to go to the next place. You're into personal growth, and that can bring a lot of happiness and satisfaction. So in other words, joy is often hiding in places that require a little discomfort. It's not the quick fix happiness that we've been sold, but it's real and it's lasting. This is so funny because we hear this a lot. You know, people will stay in relationships or jobs or situations for a very long time for many, many reasons, but it's unhappy there. And when they finally take the step to walk into the discomfort of leaving that situation, person, space, job, whatever it might be, once they come out on the other side, they are happier. So that's something I think we can all grab onto and understand in that regard. It's sort of like that old saying, when one door closes, another one opens. And the opening of the door brings us joy, the connection crisis, and how to heal from it. One of the most important findings of this year's report is about social connection, or rather the lack of it, especially among young adults. But I really find this in older adults as well. I think that really scans the gamut of ages, except for possibly in young children in elementary school where those relationships have been kind of set up for them. They see the same kids every day. Their parents are creating play dates for them and all of that. And that might be a little different, but certainly there can be folks in that age bracket that are also feeling alone. But I really think this is an epidemic, especially in the United States. I can only really speak to the United States, but I find it to be an epidemic. It comes up all the time in my journaling groups. It comes up all the time in coaching. It comes up all the time during meditation groups. I just think an epidemic of loneliness, and possibly COVID and everyone sheltering in place for years on end has exacerbated that a little bit. For the first time ever, people under 30 in North America and Western Europe are reporting lower levels of well-being than every other age group. This is incredible, right? Because we always think being in our 30s is like this great time in life when finally you know something, you've made it through the 20s, you're in your 30s and you're moving forward and you still have all this life you're looking forward to. But that's not the case. Why? According to the researchers, young people today face increased loneliness, isolation, and a disconnection from community structures that used to offer support. School closures, social media pressures, economic uncertainty, it just all adds up. And, that kind of makes sense because you've gone through K through 12 school, let's say, you went to college, you got out around 25, you kind of were still associated with those groups of folks, you're trying to get your feet on the ground. And then those kind of natural structures go away. And I recently read Mel Robbins' book, Let Them. And in there, she talks about friendships and how it's hard to have friendships when you're a grown up because everyone's at a different stage in life. And before, when you were a kid, you were all at the same stage of life. You're all in 8th grade. You're all in 9th grade. You're all freshmen. You have a lot of built-in connection in your life. And when you're out there in the adult world, you're trying to make friendships. And sometimes where you normally go, like work, everyone's at a different place in their lives. And forging deeper connections is a little bit more challenging. It's a really interesting perspective. And I urge you to read that book if you're kind of struggling with relationships. But here's the good news. Connection is one of the most powerful levers for increasing happiness. It's never too late to build it. The report finds that shared activities, volunteering, which I talk about a lot in the loneliness podcasts that I've done, group projects, and simply eating together strengthen the bonds that buffer against depression and boost resilience. So I'll link some of the older podcasts that I've done about loneliness and isolation because this is really, really important. There's so many groups that you can tap into on Meetup. You can do volunteering, group projects at work, or within your neighborhood. In my neighborhood, everyone's kind of adopted one of those roundabouts that, that diverts traffic. Each street has adopted one of those, and there's community gardening that happens in that small roundabout. And it's really beautiful, and everybody's excited about what everybody else's roundabout looks like and how beautiful it is. And just simple, tiny things like that to find connection. There's also meditation groups, hiking groups, yoga classes, all kinds of things you can tap into to explore different connections with folks. Ask yourself, when was the last time I reached out? Who in my life makes me feel seen? What spaces make me feel safe? This is where the healing begins. So that's a few journal prompts for you. When was the last time you reached out to folks? I recently did this because I am very bad at reaching out to folks. I realize it's an issue I have. It's one of my shadows, and I'm really, really working on it. It's hard. You'll fall back, but you just keep going. Who in your life makes you feel seen? What are those people? Do you know them now? And are there groups of people that you just kind of get along with? You're on the same vibe. Who are those people? And what spaces make you feel safe? And are there any kind of connections between all those things that you can tap into? And that'll give you a place to start. What the happiest countries are doing differently. Now let's zoom out and look at the world, just the global communities. Once again, Finland has been named the happiest country in the world, followed closely by Denmark, Iceland, and Sweden, which is funny to me on a level, not culturally, because I totally get that. And structurally, I totally get that. But the weather alone, right? In the United States, we're really conditioned to feel like, oh, any bad weather, that's what makes us depressed. And there is a lot of truth in that. I'm not knocking that whatsoever at all. I lived in the Pacific Northwest a couple of times, and I did find it challenging to not have a lot of sunshine around. So I totally, totally get that. But it's important to realize that these countries where weather is an issue, it's not just sunny summertime 24/7, are some of the happiest places on earth. These countries aren't perfect, but they share something important, a high level of trust in the governments, in each other, and in their communities. And I want to just really hone in on this trust factor, which is something the United States is really reeling with on so many levels is if we don't have a high level of trust in the government, our happiness factor can really plummet. If we don't have high trust in each other, it can really plummet and in our communities. And we've had a lot of isolation around politics and a lot of kind of lines in the sand around politics. And that's really kept us from happiness. I lived in a community a couple years ago before Biden was elected. It was right around the election. And the neighborhood was so stratified, you almost couldn't walk down certain streets or you'd be heckled. And not heckled necessarily for your political beliefs, but just because you had a look that might jive with with a political view the other person had, right? So I look a little groovy, and I really felt attacked on some streets. So I started avoiding them. And that created a lot of isolation for me. And I was very, very unhappy. Another thing that happened to me is I wore masks in the supermarket. And this was when there was a mask ordinance. So I wasn't doing it at a very awkward or odd time. And I was actually heckled a lot of the time. And it was really hard for me because I do have a lot of damage in my lung from having pneumonia a couple of times. And I was really afraid of if I got COVID, then I would really, really be compromised more than I already am. But, these people didn't know that. But we were just so conditioned to be stratified and against one another. It created this incredible isolation within this very small community. And eventually I moved away just because the happiness level in that neighborhood was really, really hard for me. I just really felt like I didn't belong. My sense of belonging was really just shattered. There are also strong cultural emphasis on work-life balance, equal access to healthcare, and social safety nets that reduce the stress of surviving. And this is something our country is challenged with right now. We don't have a good work-life balance in general. It's not really valued up the chain. And even though there's a lot of lip service about it, a lot of times I see with people that I come across in my work that there's a lot of lip service about work-life balance, but that's not what's happening in their work. Equal access to healthcare is huge, huge, huge. I think that gives a lot of people stress and sadness here in the United States. I know someone who had to have surgery and is now struggling with this huge bill, even though they had insurance. There's so much of it wasn't covered, and they can't maintain and pay this bill on top of a huge tax bill that they also received. And so they're drowning. And that's really, really hard. The stress of surviving can really push you down into despair, isolation, loneliness, and just I can't get out of it. That feeling that you can't get out of it is really hard. But here's something even more beautiful. People in these countries report feeling safe to rely on one another. Huge, huge, huge. They believe someone would catch them if they fell, and that belief alone has a massive impact on your mental health and satisfaction alone. Just believing that people have your back, that you're part of a group who cares about each other and will help each other is so important. And again, in a country like the United States, where we're really, really stratified and we're taught to compete with one another rather than help one another, we're an individualist kind of society. Oftentimes, we don't have this belief that people have our back, that we can rely on each other. But then that seems to be the natural way of human beings, because a disaster happens, and everyone in the neighborhood is helping each other out. Everyone is making sure everyone's fed and housed and clothed and where are the animals and all these types of things. So we do have this within ourselves to come together, but there's something about our society that is a barrier in between us and other people, and finding that level of safety and that we can rely on one another, even strangers. This tells us something critical. Happiness isn't about the individual. It's a collective experience. When we feel held, seen, supported, our capacity for joy expands. So rethinking how we pursue happiness, I think, is really, really important. Let me leave you with the last concept of the report, the meta emotion paradox. It's a mouthful, but it's simple. And it's profound. The paradox is this: people who chase happiness, who monitor and analyze their joy levels all the time, actually feel less happy than those who focus on meaning, service, and relationships. So let me say that again. If you put too much emphasis, which we can do, because if we're feeling lonely and we need to make friends, That is in our mind all the time. If we don't feel happy, that's in our mind all the time. And where we start to concentrate on feeling unhappy, and that creates how we view the world. And that creates our vibration we put out there. And that creates our reality, because your reality is really what you make it. If you're concentrating so much on not being happy and being alone and all these things, that is exactly what you'll manifest in life. Instead, it's important to focus on meaning of your life, service to others and the environment, and relationships. Focus on those things. Put energy into those things. Concentrate on those things. And once you do that, your reality will shift. It might take a little while, but it will happen. This is ancient wisdom, by the way, and now backed by science. When we center our lives around what we love, who we care for, and why we're here, happiness becomes a natural byproduct. It's not about constant pleasure. It's about living life that feels deeply aligned. And I will say this is totally true, because although I am still struggling financially a little bit, very paycheck to paycheck, I feel happy overall. I've worked very, very hard, like the last 3-4 years, to carve out happiness. I had something really devastating happen to me in the work world, extremely devastating, that I'm still recovering from. It was an extreme act of unkindness, uncaring, something I really couldn't get behind. And I was supposed to carry out the impetus from higher up that, everybody just suck up and work on. And I just couldn't do that. And it really broke me in so many ways. And I've really been struggling in so many ways to find my place in the work world. And it's been a challenge for 4+ years. But through all that, I've done all this work on just kind of carving out some happiness for myself. And even when horrible things happened, like my relationship ended with my partner and these big things in your life that are really, really devastating, I can still overall be happy. I'm not dragged down by those. That's important. It's not about constant pleasure. It's about living life that feels deeply aligned. And this has a lot to do with being true to yourself, right? So what are the takeaways? So what did we learn about the 2025 Happiness Report, which I will link in the description for you if you want to take a read? Challenging engagement is better than passive leisure. Connection is better than isolation. Although I have to say, solitude has its place. It's kind of intermingled with challenging engagement, right? Learning to be by yourself and love that time and find solitude is very, very important to happiness. So I'm not saying here that connection is something you should be doing 24/7, but connection to things, even if it's just, all the cats are walking up my leg right now. These are 2 of my foster kittens. I call this one Valerie, and this one is Little Guy, because he's the littlest of the group. And Valerie's from the Amy Winehouse song. Anyway, now they've jumped down, so scratch me. So if you're seeing this on video, that's my 2 cats. If not, you can imagine a little black cat and a little gray cat. Aw, so cute. And that's what brings me happiness, by the way. I foster these animals. It makes me feel connected that I'm doing something for others, for these little guys, helping them get a good start in life. And that brings me a lot of pleasure. So finding connection can be found in really interesting, unusual ways. You might consider fostering animals for your local shelter. It does really bring you connection. And you meet a lot of people at the shelter, and you kind of create this little community for yourself. And it's really wonderful. Well, everyone is concerned about the betterment of the animals that we share the planet with. So if that's your jam, you might consider doing that. Okay, back to the takeaways. Challenging engagement is better than passive leisure, but again, these are all in balance, okay? Connection is better than isolation. Trust is so much more important than having control. I should do a whole podcast on just that. Crazy. Meaning is more important. Meaning in your life is more important than monitoring your happiness. Meaning is where you should concentrate on. We all live in a time when it's easy to feel disconnected and overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, overwhelm is, I think, something we all deal with on a daily basis, whether it's just little snippets of our day or our entire day and night. But happiness, as the research shows, is built intentionally in how we show up for one another, in how we spend our time, and in how we root ourselves in purpose. So we have to be intentional about it, and we have to take action. We have to reach out, go out, discover ourselves, be more authentic, create our own connections, find ways we can really employ trust and meaning in our lives, and to grow, find that challenging engagement. So if this episode spoke to you, I hope you will share it with someone who needs it. It's a few little simple things you can do in your life to foster and grow more happiness in your garden. And I will leave a link to the happiness report. I also want to leave a link to my book, Reasons to Live, which is behind me. It has a lot of other practices, one in particular about feeling more connected to your community when you're feeling a bit isolated. So there's a lot of really good stuff in that book that can help you on this journey of self-discovery. I'm also writing another book about journaling throughout the year and working on this change and how to use change as a catalyst for happiness. So keep an eye out for that. And as always, you can go on my website, which I will link, and book time with me, or see what my other projects are, or maybe go to my meetup and join the journaling group or the other groups that are about to go on there. It's going to get a big revamp, so I'm really excited about it. I hope to see some of you over there, and please leave a comment about happiness for you. What are your challenges? And how are you finding more happiness in your life? Both of those things I think would be really important to the I Care About You community, because we are a community here and we can help each other out. We can create trust and meaning here within I Care About You. And I hope you do that. It would be amazing. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me. I so appreciate you. And I want to remind you that I support you, I love you, and I care about you. I really, really do. So thank you for being here. And until next time, I'm really tongue-tied on this particular one. Take care of your whole, beautiful, and amazing self, and I'll see you next time.